Welcome to Not So Silent. We will say what you can't. On today's show, we got a COVID and school updates again, and it's not getting better. Prognostication Station for the vice presidency again, and some other things. Serious or satire? We have a sports update and our top 5 most overrated things. Today's show is brought to you by Six Kids Construction. Six Kids Construction specializes in interior and exterior painting and remodeling. If you're anything like me, you are trying to get the hell out of where you live into a place that maybe has schools open. Please let me know if you find them, maybe in Wyoming. But if you are thinking of moving and selling your home, what better way to do it than fix up your curb appeal with a beautiful exterior paint job or some interior work? If you're in the St. Louis area and you want to make your house more like a home, look up Six Kids Construction. That's the number 6kidsconstruction.com. All right. Well, wow, we got a lot to get going here. I'm Taylor Duncan coming to you from Chicago. I got Sean Phelps from the Kansas City area joining me today. There will be no Chris Herdigan. He is off busy fighting the coronavirus, maybe. I don't know what Chris is doing, but he's not able to be with us today. So, Sean, let's break right into our COVID update with the schools updates. Chicago Public Schools, one of the largest public school districts in the country, just 2 days ago announced they are rolling back to go fully remote to get started when they start in September. Looks like my school district right outside the city of Chicago sadly is likely to cut the 2-day-a-week option that we were given and move to fully remote, as well as the high school has already done it, and it looks like the elementary and middle schools will be doing that. What the hell is going on, Sean?
My school district still hasn't decided. We don't know. Undetermined.
Can someone help me understand what we're trying to do? So I'm going to ask you a series of questions. You tell me if you think this is it. Are they doing this to protect the kids?
I think that's part of it. I think there's a small chance of, if you find out your kid got COVID from a classmate and the school wasn't doing what they could, and some reason that kid was one of a million that, it caused a lot of problems or caused a lifelong damage or potentially death, I think you would rightfully want to sue the school district for not managing it properly. So I think that's a small percentage of it, but as we all know, kids can get it anywhere. Kids are still playing with other kids on their block. Kids are going to daycares. So I don't think that's the whole thing at all. I think it's maybe 5% of it.
So here's what I want. One thing I want, as the world has gotten so into this like mask shaming, and if you don't follow the coronavirus shaming, and there's people who actually have come to baseball tournaments and they're taking pictures of people not following social distancing rules and putting them online and stuff like that. I want to do the reverse of it. I want for every parent to have to come out and say if they wanted to go online or in person, and for everyone who wanted to go online, I want to take pictures of those parents and their daily activities to show how hypocritical it is, what they're doing with themselves and their kids and how much exposure they have. And by the way, if you're saying you're worried about the lawsuits, then why don't we sue every single year for the kids that die of the flu that likely get it from the school as well, which according to, again, CDC director, 5 to 10 times more likely to die of the flu than COVID for children from the information that we know right now. So why, I don't get it. This doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Yep. So I find it hard to believe they're doing it to protect their kids. So next question, are they doing it to protect the kids' home, the people who live in the same home, parents or other siblings or whatever?
No, I don't think that's part of the decision.
Okay. Are they doing it to protect the community with this idea that, well, kids, they're going to spread it a little bit, and therefore, I guess it creates an uptick of people who have it in the community, and therefore other people in the community can get it?
That's probably the concern they're using to justify it of why COVID needs to slow down schools. But that seems odd to me. I don't get it.
Okay. So Do you think they're doing it because of the teachers?
Nope.
See, that's where I think you're wrong. I vehemently disagree. I think 100% this is all a teacher-based issue. And we've heard it. The teachers have threatened if they're forced to go to school, they will strike. If the teachers have to go to their jobs, they're going to strike against the unions will strike. And this to me is crazy. And by the way, I got to come out and say it. I love teachers. I think they're an integral part of our society as much as many other very important professions. They do an amazing thing in educating our kids, keeping our kids safe, doing all of these different things. But just last week, 1,200 teachers staged a fake funeral of 1,200, teachers dying, in this fake funeral down in the Nashville area to protest against having to go into school, to make sure it was very clear they feel if they have to go to school, 1,200 teachers are going to die. And it's this widespread, oh my gosh, how are you going to make us the guinea pigs, and you're going to get us killed, and all this other stuff. How is a teacher's job any different than a doctor's, a nurse's, a fireman, the person who works at the local grocery store, the person who's cutting your hair, and the person who mows your lawn, cuts down your trees, fixes the potholes in the road, other city workers, etc.? Why aren't teachers essential to go to their job? Why is it not essential that teachers?
That part is really interesting. I want to see a bunch of firefighters sit around and protest that they don't want to go into somebody's home when it's on fire to save them or save their home or save the neighborhood from burning down because they're worried they might get COVID or they're worried the fire might kill them. So, we're going to have a bunch of fake funerals for firefighters. That doesn't make sense to me. I mean, there's a lot of people that need to go interact with other people, and the doctors and nurses being the most, and they're not protesting right now. They're not, they obviously have gotten a lot of praise. There have been a lot of medical people that have succumbed to COVID. So, and we've honored them and appreciated, all their contributions. And there's a lot of brave people in that environment. I'm sure there's some brave teachers out there, but the general consensus is, well, we don't really feel like we're essential enough to risk our lives getting COVID. Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, how do we all just not go to work, right?
So what other part of society is allowed to choose not to go to their job, but still get full pay and full pension? And you can't have the argument they're still going to work by teaching virtually, because that's really, we've found that is very ineffective. We know that doesn't work. There have been multiple studies that have showed online coursework, especially for young people, is terribly ineffective.
That's where I think you're going to see the teachers lose a lot of power, is when the counter to that is going to go, okay, well, then we need vouchers. We need charter schools. We need the ability to pull our kids out of public school and receive some federal funding to be able to send them to the school of our choice. And you're going to see a lot more push for things like school choice and charter schools and vouchers, because I want the opportunity to send my kid to school if I so choose to, and if there's a school that decides to operate. So yeah, I mean, an airline isn't paying all of their employees to not show up to work. They're going to furlough those employees and say, hey, we don't need as many of you as we did before. And I think the schools should and could do the same in order to do the thing that's in the best interest of the community in terms of tax dollars. So they could furlough a lot of teachers and say, hey, we only need one kindergarten teacher if we're going to do it on virtual, because they're all just watching at home on their computers. And we're going to have a second teacher that does all the grading and prepares all the assignment. And this team of two is going to handle what normally would be 5 teachers' jobs in 5 separate classrooms. So I think if that was part of the discussion, I'd be a lot more on board with a hybrid or a remote model if we were making changes. But you can't demand everybody gets their normal job, their normal pay. And we spend all the same money we did before, but we provide a different service than what we provided before. Firefighters can't fight fires virtually. Police officers can't keep communities safe virtually. And right now, the education system isn't set up to teach virtually. I do think long-term, we could save a ton of money moving more towards a virtual teaching model, elementary all the way up through college, where you have, in the college environment, you have the absolute best Psych 101 professor in the country recording their lectures and 10,000 students attending that. And you see that in a lot of places, right? Music, acting, Any area where the top person makes buku bucks, sports especially, everybody doesn't get the opportunity to be on a basketball team. Only the very best. And they make a lot of money for it, and the rest of us don't get to do that as a career. And I think that is where education would go if we eventually got to a virtual model. But we're not, we don't have the technology and the infrastructure built right now to go completely virtual and have it be effective. So,
and I think you're underweighting the education of being in a classroom in a competitive environment with kids sitting next to you, of seeing the teacher live, of having to show up early. It's like going to church online versus in person. It's a totally different experience. And I think you're undervaluing the experience that you get in an in-person education model versus a virtual education model. And my biggest fear, if we go back to the protect the kids, I believe that if you look back over a 3-year span of time from now, and for 3 years or whatever, and in 20 years you look back, I think you will see such a gigantic spike in youth depression, suicide rates, mental health issues in general, OCD and everything else will skyrocket during this period of time, because the school and the sports has been rolled back, which are two major components of your adolescence, brain development. Both of those things being rolled back or cut completely, you're going to find a massive amount of kids who are going to be feeling much more anxiety, depression, etc., and they're going to be stuck in homes. Not to mention, this is going to cripple the inner city. I jokingly said, if I were to go into a new career, I believe the greatest career choice that's going to have a giant spike will be gang leadership. I think the greatest career you could get into right now, although it is criminal, is to become a gang leader. What better job could you have right now than a place where in the inner cities they're talking about getting rid of the police and kids are stuck at home and oftentimes without mom and dad around? Like, holy cow. That's how gangs are formed, with a bunch of 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders who are at home with nothing to do, mom and dad aren't around, and there's no policing on the streets. Well, great. I'll just get into a gang. That's the only way I can survive at this point. It's all I have to do during the day. And because I can't go to my sports because those got shut down, football is closed. I can play baseball, I guess, but in many cases, those have been closed down too. But I can't play football, can't play soccer, at least here in Illinois. So I might as well just join a gang.
To answer your question of why, I think the real answer is a lack of leadership. I think bureaucracy is the real answer of why we don't know what's going on and why some of these decisions are being made. You've got just the school going, well, we don't know what to do because the county health department has to tell us what to do. And the county health department's like, well, we got to look at like what's going on with the state and the federal regulations and what the CDC recommends. And you've got all these layers of bureaucracy where they traditionally have forms to fill out, boxes to check, systems and processes to follow. And we all know that, the government doesn't do the best job of providing a great, efficient customer service driven model of rapid innovation. They're not like a startup that's just coming up.
Except for the DMV is pretty amazing.
Yeah. So I think bureaucracy is really the cause of why decisions aren't being made and why better plans aren't being created, because this isn't in their job description, right? These are people that said, hey, I want to go work in a bureaucratic structure where I do my job and I don't have to innovate and create new things. I just keep the things that exist on track. And now they're having to innovate and they're like, whoa, this is not my personality, right? The people that are best suited to fix this kind of problem are the innovators, the startup people, you want a Steve Jobs in charge of something like this, not a bureaucratic figure. So I think that's where the real problem comes from.
I think they need to get some balls and make some decisions, but their decisions are lackluster. It's disgusting. How about this to kind of go along with kids getting the coronavirus? Trump has been censored yet again on Facebook now. Facebook and Twitter. Twitter has already done it. Now Facebook has done it and taken down a Facebook post where Trump said more or less kids aren't going to get this, open up schools. And he even threw in there, yes, it was a little bit of an extent of hyperbole where he said kids are almost immune from this. obviously not quite accurate. But Facebook has decided to police this and become the fact checkers of the world. What say you on this First Amendment issue?
Well, I mean, my libertarian side says, hey, they're a company and they have the right to do that. Now they will then limit themselves in other ways, right? If they're not just a public utility of a marketplace for the entire community and there is censorship, then that opens up a Pandora's box of what they should and shouldn't censor, and it opens them up to legal issues of people, wanting to argue over whether or not they should or should not be censored. So, I mean, that's their decision to do. I don't think I would do that if I'm Facebook. I think I would let the free speech fly and let the market determine what's right or wrong. I think it actually helps Trump's case too, right? I think if that's out there and the general reaction is I disagree with that and that's dumb, it's out there. But when the narrative is that, hey, whatever he was trying to say was stopped, and you don't even really talk about what he was trying to say, but it's that people are trying to stop him from saying things, that gives him an opponent and an enemy to rally his base against. So I don't think it's a smart political decision either for them, or a smart business decision, but I mean, that's their decision to do. And I do think they should have the freedom to make that decision.
Fair enough. All right, sports are back. Let's talk about sports. Sports are back. The NHL is up and running. The NBA is up and running. Major League Baseball is up and running. It's not often on August 6th we get to talk about sports. Have you tuned in?
Man, it's hard to do. Like, I've tried a couple times. The whole time COVID was going on, I was saying, man, as soon as any sport is back, like I'll watch a bass fishing tournament if I have to right now. I need it so bad. And now it's here, and I'm like, they're not that exciting. I feel like the lack of stadium noise and fans really limits the watching experience. Like, you feel like you're just sort of watching some really good guys at the gym. Like, and I never, if I see a really good pickup game going on at the Y, I don't stop my workout and go stand there and watch them because they're good basketball players. It's the rivalry. It's the theatrics of the whole, like, the Roman gladiator battle with the fans yelling, and it's just, that's what you're really tuning in to see, is the excitement and the momentum, last minute shots, big blocks with the crowd's reaction. I feel like sports are really flat to watch right now. It's hard.
I would agree. I watched the Blackhawks last night, although it was, if your team's in it, the NHL was, it was exciting, and the Blackhawks came, from behind 3-2 with 8 minutes left, and they ended up winning 4-3. It was a fun game to watch. But I don't know that it was must-see TV. It didn't feel the same because it's a weird playoff format that I'm not real familiar with. I guess somehow the Blackhawks are in the playoff. They just went directly to this playoff, and there's very little to do about it. I mean, heck, when you go to ESPN, one of the top articles is whoever decides to stand for the anthem, not the big game that's coming up. It's really, I would agree. I think that the phrase flat is exactly how I would describe it. It wasn't that it was bad to watch. Just, again, I tuned in to the Blackhawks game after I watched an episode of Schitt's Creek on Netflix. That's pretty rare for me, especially when you're talking playoffs. I kind of forgot the Blackhawks were even playing. And I'm waiting for sports to be back to normalcy. I'm waiting for the world to be back to normalcy. But it wasn't a ton of fun. Major League Baseball, the most exciting thing is to find out which team went to the strip club on their road trip last week to figure out if they're going to get a big outbreak of coronavirus or syphilis this coming week.
Although Jeter said they were in the hotel room, they didn't do anything wrong. A couple people maybe went and got a cup of coffee, and I'm not sure how it happened. So,
sure. I'm sure that's exactly what happened. Also, what comes with sports with a really low preseason and stuff, and maybe this is sports in general, injuries are back in a big way. Verlander, Scherzer both go down right away. You're seeing almost every team within their first 3 or 4 games is losing a guy due to injury. That kind of makes it not fun either, and especially when these teams have these shortened seasons that don't feel like much. If a player can kind of play 3 games, tweak an ankle, and call it for the season, I think you're going to see a lot of players doing that. where they're not going to risk any sort of significant injury for this season because the money isn't there. And especially if there's any sort of injury clause where they still get their full pay for the year, you're going to see a lot of guys, unless they're the top one or two teams in the league, just sit it out.
So much of the excitement of sports is that momentum within a game, but also within a season. And seeing, I'm not that into the NFL week 1 or week 2, but by the time it gets to week 9 and you start to go, oh, this is a big, exciting matchup that got moved to the primetime spot, and this game has implications for the playoffs. That's what really makes the games more exciting, is when you need to win them, the must-win situations, the rivalries, and the big-time players going up against each other, the top defense going against the top offense, or the top quarterback going against the top D-line, and seeing those kind of the matchups. Right now, it's like I can't even figure out who's playing for who, and who's that on third base? Is that a minor league player? Or I've never even seen that name before. So it's really hard to get excited about. Hopefully, it picks up. Hopefully within a few weeks we get some exciting games, maybe some amazing performances of somebody in the NBA puts up a 80-point game, or somebody in MLB hits for the cycle, or just a no-hitter, something to get me interested. But right now, I've wanted to tune in really badly. I have, and it's hard to stay tuned.
Yep. I don't disagree, and we are both giant sports fans. How about this one to relate to sports and a little bit of the political discord going on here? Jonathan Isaac was the NBA player who decided to stand, which made crazy national news. How about that for a second? What? I mean, if you can imagine back to January, life is flowing, everything's normal, stock market's rising, we're all excited and happy, and all of a sudden in a matter of 7 months, 7 months go by, we're hitting the 8th month, and now the big news story is Jonathan Isaac stands for the anthem because every other NBA player has knelt for the anthem, except for Jonathan Isaac. And this is national news. I didn't even know who this guy is. My kids did, but I didn't know who he is. So he stands for the anthem. 3 days later, he blows out his knee in a game. Dan Lebitard, who's a huge ESPN personality, goes out and polls his massive audience and asks them, was it funny that he blew out his knee? Oh. Was it funny? Could you imagine if someone had said something like that? In this day and age, if someone made fun of someone who is a big Black Lives Matter supporter or a Kaepernick supporter or something like that, what if they said, is it funny that Kaepernick still doesn't have a job? That reporter would probably be fired, and if not, would be just lambasted. Instead, Lebitard says, sorry, that was in bad taste, and moves on.
Yeah, it seems like a shock for ratings. Get some attention. Nobody's really watched my show in a while. I got to do something outlandish. That's what it feels like, is a PR stunt. But I found it really interesting that a year ago, 2 years ago, a few people would kneel for the anthem, and I never had a problem with that. I was fine with it. And but 99% of the athletes stood, and that's completely reversed. And it's just interesting to see how easily how subjective our framing of things is, and how human psychology works, and just that 80% of people just do what everyone else is doing, right? It's like, all right, well, we're gonna kneel. Oh, well, everybody else is still standing. I don't really want to get in any trouble. I'm gonna go ahead and stand. I agree with what you're doing, and a lot of NFL players would say that about a Colin Kaepernick or Eric Reed or whoever. They'd say, yeah, I support him, but I want to stand. Why? Well, because everyone else is standing. And now it's the exact opposite, where it's like, oh, why are you kneeling? Well, I understand why this guy's standing, but, everybody else is kneeling, so I better just do. And it's like really interesting to see how much mob mentality there is, and how it's people disgusting. Really make their own decisions. I'll give Colin Kaepernick a little bit of credit that he made his own decision, and he's an independent thinker. And same thing to a Jonathan Isaac, that somebody has the guts to stand up for their own beliefs. But holy cow, 80% of the group is just like, I'll do whatever we're supposed to do. Whatever the group's doing, I'll just do that. I don't really want to get in a fight, so I'll just do whatever the rest of the group's doing.
I'm beyond disgusted by it. I can't imagine another country at the Olympics where every single one of those countrymen knelt or did some sort of act of disregard for their national anthem like we're seeing here in America. I think it is disgusting, repulsive. I'm blown away. I get it. The beautiful thing is, in our country, you're allowed to do that. If you did that in China, you'd probably be locked up with the Uyghurs. I mean, it's ridiculous, but at least we're allowed to do something like that. I just can't believe this many people have chosen to do it. And it's a major reason why I am tuning out in sports. Every time I turn on a baseball game, a White Sox game, I check to see if they have any of their stupid political rally going on. And as long as they don't, I'll watch it. If they do, I just turn it off. So I think the biggest news story, and we've held it off for 25 minutes, and I don't know why more people aren't talking about it, but it has to be the biggest news story. And it's blowing my mind that it's like kind of like, yeah, whatever, not that big of a deal. Joe Biden, the presumptive Democratic nominee, has said, I'm not going to go to Milwaukee to accept my nomination, citing fears of the coronavirus. How in the world can you be one of the two candidates, the final two candidates to be president of the United States during a pandemic that's not going away anytime soon by most people's accounts, and you're not able to go to Milwaukee to accept the nomination? Is that not a problem? I can't imagine that this isn't.
What I don't understand is how that excuse works, because you got to assume, like, you know, the president, I would assume, like, presidential candidates, there's like Secret Service and there's all these protective things of, like, they go out in public all the time. And, you know, there used to be, we've had some assassinations, right? It's JFK, Abraham Lincoln. And so they're at risk of being harmed by the general public all the time. There's always some crazy person out there that wants to hurt them or wants to become famous by hurting them, and they're protected from it. So if you can be protected from that, which our Secret Service somehow has been able to do with whatever technology they have and skills they have for a pretty good track record, right? How in the world can't you protect the guy from the coronavirus? I mean, how can he not be flown in a bubble, driven around in a Pope mobile, put a mask on, you know, wear a gas mask? Like, maybe you reset up the stage so he's not like right up by the crowd, but he's way back from the crowd and it's outdoors. Like, I feel like there's just got to be a way to keep him safe from the coronavirus.
If there's not, how could he lead our country?
Right. So it seems like a really odd, I don't get it. I think what it is it's not a political thing, Republican versus Democrat. It's within the Democratic Party, the concern over him getting the nomination. There were so many Bernie bros that were saying, you know, if Bernie doesn't win and they shaft him again this time, we're going to destroy Milwaukee. There's going to be riots. There's going to be protests. And they were talking about this riots and protests before the George Floyd stuff, before Seattle and Portland. And they were big about, like, you know, watch out, like Milwaukee, we're going to have some serious problems. And Biden got the nomination. So I think really the move here is not a COVID thing. I think they can keep him safe from COVID if they need to. We don't want to draw attention back. Nobody's talking about the fact that Bernie got shafted again. We don't want to bring that back in light. We don't want to show on the national stage that there's strife within our party, because that's something that Trump's going to, you know, sniff blood and kill. So I think that's what they're trying to keep the attention away from, is they want a united front. Anything that's going to maybe look bad from within the Democratic Party, you know, could hurt their chances in November. So it's better to just stay away from Milwaukee, because we know there's going to be some people there that are pissed that Biden got the nomination.
Fair enough. All right. So we have a couple segments left, and I'll let you decide, Sean. Would you rather do serious or satire right now, or prognostication station?
Well, let's have some fun with some satire. So we got two segments within serious or satire today. We got a record-breaking segment. There's been a few cool records broken recently, so I want to figure out if these records are real or not. And then we got a couple of news ones they're not quite as exciting. So did this really happen, Taylor? Serious or satire? A man broke the Guinness World Record last week by solving 6 Rubik's Cubes while underwater in just over 2 minutes.
Serious.
Absolutely. That happened in India. A Wisconsin Supreme Court justice was sworn in during a 100-mile run. They took a break at mile 35, was sworn in as a Supreme Court justice in the state of Wisconsin, and continued their 100-mile ultramarathon.
Serious.
That happened. You're on a roll. David Goggins broke his own pull-up record of 4,030 pull-ups in 24 hours and did a whopping 6,000 pull-ups in 24 hours.
Satire.
You're on a roll. 3 for 3. Good work.
Wow.
Manitoba man, 61-year-old Manitoba man breaks Guinness World Record by riding his bike 7,031 miles in 1 month.
A Manitoba? Serious.
Yep, it happened. Same guy in 2011 rode his bike from Vancouver to Halifax all the way across the state of the country of Canada in 13 days.
Oh.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the amount of gold bond that guy needed at the end of that?
Right?
Holy cow.
I hope his seat was memory foam. So Nevada man breaks the NBA distance three-pointer. So from NBA distance, three-point shots made in 1 minute. The record was 31. He made 45.
Satire.
Wow. 5 for 5 on the records. Good work.
Wow.
On the news ones, Domino's pulled a promotion where they were giving away free pizzas to Karens. If your name was Karen, you could get free pizza. True or false?
False.
That happened. It happened. So in New Zealand and Australia, Domino's said, hey, all these Karens out there. So Karen, for those of you that aren't familiar, is a white woman who is not woke, right? They don't support racial justice. They don't support COVID protection. They don't wear masks, and they're proud of it. They shoot little videos in Facebook Live in their car about how I had to wear a mask, and I was so hard to breathe. And it was just like, oh, my gosh.
Yeah,
They always want to speak to the manager. So Domino's decided, hey, if your name's Karen, this isn't fair. We're going to give you free pizza. So first 100 Karens to apply, you get like free pizza for a year or free pizza for a month or something. They had to take it down because the woke mob attacked Domino's and said free pizza should go to people who have been economically impacted by COVID or to racial minorities. And Domino's was like, oh crap, sorry, we didn't mean to give pizza to Karens. We'll give it to somebody else. So that got pulled.
I love cancel culture is just out of control.
Oh yeah. But hey, credit to Domino's for getting a lot of PR out of it. We're talking about it. So, and then the last one in news is Joe Biden said yesterday he can't wait to find out who he picked for VP.
Serious.
That is satire. So, but it could be serious.
All right, I have one for you. Portland Summer Drive-In Fest flunks kindergarten cop.
Yeah, I'd say that's serious. I feel like there's probably some racist parts of that movie.
It is not. It is serious. It's not for racism. They have it for over-policing.
Okay, yeah, police brutality. So, I mean, there's a racial component to it.
It's not police brutality. It's over-policing. Cancel culture strikes again. Kindergarten cop screening pulled after complaint. I mean, come on. Kindergarten cop? Are you serious? That now is, and you know what it was related to? They said kindergarten cop should be in the same category as Gone with the Wind. What world are those two movies in the same category outside of their cinematic value? I mean, they are both amazing movies and maybe 1 and 2 greatest movies of all time, Kindergarten Cop and Gone with the Wind. Come on. This is ridiculous. Do these people hear themselves talk? They sound like such idiots. It's incredible, but it did. It got pulled. So the kids out in Portland are not going to be able to see the amazing Arnold Schwarzenegger in a serious movie, sort of.
Well, they can't show the movie Sleepless in Seattle.
Really?
It's not woke.
Why? Because people aren't defecating in the streets in that movie?
Well, it's their sleep.
Oh. Ah. Ooh. I just figured it was something on Seattle and, there wasn't like
I guess
needle.
they can show it. They can show it. They're sleepless in Seattle, so they're woke. So then it's good.
There you go. Wonderful. All right. Prognostication Station, Sean. Let's see what you will do. Last week we asked about the VP candidate. There was no, it was just very wide open. It looks like, from what a lot of people are saying in the know, it is down to two candidates, Susan Rice or Kamala Harris. You did not have either. So
yeah. So I'm still pulling for a surprise from Val. I'm becoming a big Val Demings fan. The more I read about her,
there's no chance you're a fan of hers.
She served as a police officer for a long career there, and she's got a real presidential look. I mean, she looks like a serious bad bitch. So I'm a Val fan. And then I do think of the final two, though. I think Susan Rice is the least controversial. Kamala had a lot of battles with Biden. They didn't see eye to eye on some things. I think they'd have a hard time being on the same page. And I think Susan Rice is more qualified in terms of foreign relations and just international relations. And so
she doesn't have dementia. So she's more qualified than Biden.
I do think that it's important with a president that lacks mental capacities like Joe Biden that you have somebody that's going to be handling international relations, because I do think some other countries might perceive us as weakened with a Joe Biden president. So
you think?
Yes.
All right. So let's move into a new one. I have heard grumblings potentially that Donald Trump might move Biden into a full-time coronavirus role and pick a female vice president candidate.
Ooh.
So if he does, who does he choose? Who is your prognostication? I have mine.
Oh, gosh. Well, you go first.
Obviously his daughter would be great. that would definitely make the press go nuts. I'm going to say Nikki Haley. Gosh, okay. She was good too. I would love it if it was Nikki Haley. She's awesome.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, Tulsi was a Democrat or is a Democrat, so we can't have Tulsi. So, oh man, and it has to be a woman.
No, but I would assume he's not pushing out Pence for another white male over.
I'm a big Tim Scott fan, so.
Oh, okay.
And I'd go Tim Scott.
I like Tim Scott. All right, prognostication. Will Biden leave Delaware? I wanted to say his basement, but will he leave the state of Delaware by September 1st?
Ooh, no. Absolutely not. I mean, he'd be going to Milwaukee if he was.
I agree. I think he is going to stay in the safe state of Delaware for the rest of his life.
If you want to go really out on a limb, he is going to stay in Delaware. If he gets elected, he's going to argue that we need to tear down the White House because it's a White House. It's got, and we'll just do the presidency remote, because the teachers are doing it pretty effectively. So
exactly. He's just part of the teachers union. Will there be a new stimulus approved by September 1st?
Yes.
Oh, I say no.
And because?
There's just going to be so much gridlock and it's going to drag out. I think we will get a new stimulus. I just don't think we will get it in the next 3 to 4 weeks. I just think it's going to keep getting dragged out. I think we will have one probably in the month of September.
I think we'll have it within the next, by September 1st, I do.
Okay. And that would be, horrible. I think we're continually inching more and more towards a socialistic society where you get unemployment, your stimulus checks, and your extra unemployment checks, and all of a sudden you make $80,000 a year and don't have to work. That is, that's socialism.
Yeah. Andrew Young's $12,000 a year salary for every American is looking pretty cheap right now.
You think? No kidding. All right, on to our top 5. I like this. This was Sean's idea. Top 5 Most overrated things. There is no specific.
Anything overrated.
All right.
So,
I'm going to let you go first.
For number 5, so I tried to look at things that have won awards, things that have gotten a lot of recognition or praise. Not all 5 have, but number 5 was the Artist of the Year in 2018 and 2019. And considered the best musical artist is Taylor Swift. I don't get it. Like, I listened to a couple songs, but nothing that really seems incredible to me. I think there's a lot better artists and bands out there. Heck, Post Malone has got better music right now than Taylor Swift. So Taylor Swift's overrated.
There's no way you can overrate a Taylor. It's impossible. Anyone with that name is amazing.
There's a couple more Taylors on my list.
Great. My number 5, in a weird, very different direction, California.
I actually know that as a possible. I was on my list of ideas was California.
I hate when
here's why I didn't put it on my list is there's parts of California I think are great. There's some beautiful natural parts. And it's
been destroyed. The state it might be the most beautiful place in the world in terms of beauty, ability, and it's run by the biggest idiots of all time. The state is filled with crazy people. So, and everyone's like, oh, I should move to California. I'm like, have you ever been there? No, I haven't. Well, why don't you live there for like 3 weeks and realize the crazy taxes, the crazy policies, and everything else? Yes, it is gorgeous. The beaches are gorgeous. The natural parks are gorgeous. All that's wonderful. Unfortunately, that has magnetized all the crazy people in the world to live there. So California is my number 5. I think the place is full.
I get why you got it there. I had it on a list of ideas making mine. So my number 4 is the only one on my list that didn't have some rating or recognition as something great. But it's really just a pet peeve of mine that I think is overrated is live sports events. The whole experience of paying hundreds of dollars for a ticket, getting there 3 hours early, paying a gazillion dollars for parking, and $28 for a beer. It's like, I would rather sit at home and watch the NFL playoffs, the Super Bowl, the World Series at home. I have more fun doing it. We watched the Super Bowl in Kansas City at a friend's house this year with the Chiefs in it. Awesome experience. We had a great time, low budget, and we loved it. I wouldn't have wanted to go. So
I've always said the same thing going, you spend $5,000 to go see the Super Bowl. Why not buy a brand new giant screen TV and a couch that you'll have for the next 10 years for the same cost as going to the game that ends up like going almost too fast. And because you spend so much, you want the game to last 16 hours.
It's on my bucket list. I want to go to one, but I'm not a huge fan of going to lots of live sports the whole experience is too much time, too much expense, and not as enjoyable as just watching it and being able to change the channel and watch a different game if your game you're watching sucks. So
I agree. I like going to sporting events, but I do think oftentimes it gets overvalued. All right, my number 4, soccer.
We're not on the same page there. I'm a soccer fan.
It's soccer. I can't believe this is the most popular sport in the world, and you don't know when the game ends.
Okay.
No one knows. No one knows until the ref says, we're done. It's just sort of this and the average game in a really high competitive soccer is 1-0. That's just tough to watch. And those vuvuzelos, the noise machines, are the most annoying things of all time.
Well, those aren't really around anymore, but I'm going to actually contradict myself quite a bit here. I just said that you don't like that live sports is overrated. Soccer is better live, and it is a little carve out on my live sports overrated because you can get in and out fast. There's free stadium parking. Tickets are cheap.
Because it sucks. It sucks and no one goes.
More exciting in person than it is on television, but it doesn't. It's not a full day event. It doesn't take 12 hours and cost $500 to participate in a live game. So it is good live. I guess I might have to take live sports off my list for that reason.
All right, number 3.
Number 3, the number 1 player in the NFL top 100 list this year. Who do you think the players rated number 1?
Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I overrated. I mean, he had an amazing season.
I was right.
He had an absolutely amazing season. He was the NFL MVP. But the number one athlete in the NFL right now, when you've got Patrick Mahomes, Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey. I mean, there's a laundry list of guys that are really, really talented. He had one good season, and he was awful in the playoffs. So the argument for Tom Brady being the greatest of all time is look at the playoffs, look at the Super Bowls, look at everything he's done. If you wanted the statistically best quarterback, you're going to go with Aaron Rodgers. If you want the best quarterback of all time because of all the playoff wins and Super Bowls, you go with Tom Brady. I think Lamar Jackson had an incredible season. I think he could become the number one NFL player. But I think right now they're putting the cart before the horse a little bit, giving him the number one spot right now.
All right, my number 3. This one will be controversial with a lot of people watching this show who might or might not be drunk right now. Wine. And now I have this in kind of a large category called hobbies. But again, I'm not saying you can't have some wine, but the people who are such enthusiasts, they have wine cellars. They do whole vacations for wine. Just drink your wine, get drunk, and move on. Like, I don't understand the whole, like, it's got to taste this way and it's nutty and fruity, and just drink the wine and move. It's just nuts. The amount of, go online and look for any sort of signage, like a kitschy little woman's like quote of like, a great day finishes with a glass of wine, and it's in some, Joanna Gaines print. There's like 10 million signs people post everywhere about their wine. It's wine. I can't imagine chocolate milk, falling in this category that like everyone in there. It's a drink. Just drink your wine and move on. I think it's so over celebrated. It's unbelievable.
Valid. My number 2 was the 4-time JD Power winner of the year in different categories this year. Chevrolet. I think that's overrated. I don't think Chevrolet is one of the best car manufacturers out there right now. Got a friend who just bought a real nice Trail Boss. It's a cool truck. It's really nice. I'd be happy to drive it, but I wouldn't consider Chevrolet one of the best car manufacturers.
I can get around that. Number 2, social media.
Oh, whoa. So my number 1 is Facebook.
Okay. So social media, I've never been on it. And I think it is so overrated, this idea of like, you just have to, literally every human being in the world is on social media except for my wife and I. Facebook, Twitter, I guess I have LinkedIn, but you name it. And I find it to be obnoxious and a giant waste of time. It's overrated.
Number 1 was Facebook. Zuckerberg is the 7th wealthiest person in the world right now. And one of the young ones going to be, the wealthiest by the time if he manages his money well. Just nothing really that positive about it. It's really become an awful experience filled with ads and hate and arguments. And I deleted the app from my phone a few weeks ago and haven't looked back. I do sign in once in a while to see what my friends and family are up to, but I don't really spend a lot of time on there anymore. And I think it's going to be a dying business. It seems like TikTok obviously is in the news a lot. They're blowing up, and now Trump's trying to shut them down in the U.S. and they're going to spin off or something. There's so many different platforms. They're just a dime a dozen. I think Facebook's going to they got to a much higher peak than like MySpace did 20 years ago, but I don't see Facebook being a perennial all-star company that is, dominating the world. I think they're going to fall off. That's my prediction.
All right, that to lead us to Prognostication Station then. All right, so number 1 for me, overrated, COVID. I don't know if people will all agree with that. I'm just sick of hearing about it, and I'm over it. So
you could have gone with like the media is overrated.
Ooh, that would have been a good. Man. So my
social media. Then just elaborate that to just media.
All right, so here are my honorable mentions. In the hobby category, it's really the people who take these things too far. Golf, fishing, hunting, skiing. And I like all of them. I guess I've never gone hunting. But I like them all. They're all fine. It's the people like wine who go so far that it's like...
I have a couple others. Governments is one of my overrated. So I found this interesting. I was researching this and like how much do we spend on government? And in the US, it's like 25% of GDP is government. And that's low for an OECD country. The top countries, like I think France might have been number one. And it was like 45% of GDP is government spending. So in general, in the like large developed nations, it's like 33% of GDP is government spending. I think government's overrated. And then another overrated, couple of other overrateds you might not agree with. Bitcoin, overvalued, overrated. I don't know what you want to call it, but I mean, does anyone take Bitcoin? Can you go like, hey, I want to buy this house. Here's some Bitcoin. I don't even know how that works. And then the New England Patriots, I think, are also overrated.
Nice. My additional ones, your view from your house or whatever. I think that, it's like that's nice for a vacation. I think that gets old real quick. Roller coasters and horror movies. Just, I don't understand the idea of paying to give yourself this sense of fear. I thought we'd try to avoid fear, but I guess you can pay extra if you really want to get really, really scared and think you might.
I think horror movies are overrated because they're not very good movies. The idea of a scary movie, okay, fine. Something with unsolved mysteries. Oh gosh, that terrifies you. That's all right. They're bad.
Well, it is August 6th. We are all done. Check in next week. We will probably find out if Biden leaves his bunker. I doubt he will. I am sure sports will continue to be flat, and I bet you we will all be locked in our homes again. So thanks for tuning in. Go like us on YouTube, comment on YouTube, Stitcher,
prognosticate on us in the comments. Will we ever get an episode under 45 minutes? Throw it in the comments. See what you think. We'd love to hear you prognosticate on that.
I doubt it. All right. Well, thanks again to our sponsor, Six Kids Construction. Goodbye.